Hey guys, and welcome to Film Artsy, your number one source for all things films, movies, and Marvel. My name is Elijah, and after the release of the most recent Avengers Endgame trailer, we saw a little sneak peek of Captain Marvel finally meeting the other Avengers, in particularly Thor. And we kind of had this fun little exchange between the characters, which got us here at Film Artsy thinking, what if Captain Marvel and Thor one day fought? Or what if they needed to pick the strongest Avenger to do something in particularly? Who would be the best decision for this? Who is the strongest Avenger? Thor or Captain Marvel? So today we decided to pit these two Marvel superheroes head to head and decide once and for all who is the strongest Avenger. Let's get into it.
Agent Romanoff, you miss me?
Oh yeah, Charles, we got ourselves an X-Men fan.
Captain.
Your Highness.
Captain, big fan, Spider-Man. Hey everyone.
When we take a look at Captain Marvel and Thor and try to pit them against each other to see who would come out victorious in an epic battle, we definitely have to account for each character's different strengths and weaknesses and overall abilities. But with that, we also have to consider their backgrounds, their experiences, and general intellect. You know, sometimes fighting smarter is better than fighting harder. When looking at Captain Marvel, who is our newest character in the MCU, we really didn't get too much of a glimpse of her overall strengths and power until the very end of the movie. Of course, what we do see is pretty intense, and she's definitely an extremely powerful and strong fighter. And mind you, this is only right after her restrictions were kind of released on her fighting abilities. Her fighting everyone in that awesome fight scene that we see at the end of Captain Marvel strictly comes out of her just kind of learning her abilities and her strengths and the power behind her strengths right there and then. Between the 90s all the way up until when Avengers Endgame will take place, Captain Marvel has had a long time to hone those skills and really figure out both what and how her powers work. We feel like by the time Avengers Endgame comes out, we wouldn't be too surprised if Captain Marvel is even stronger than she was at the end of her movie, just because she's now had decades to refine her fighting abilities and really learn what works and doesn't work in combat, which is a really interesting feature, especially because Captain Marvel as a whole has a huge variety of powers and abilities, and she's definitely a force to be reckoned with. Even Marvel's Kevin Feige has said that Captain Marvel is the strongest hero that we have seen yet.
Now that we've made a number of movies that take place on Earth, and now a number of the cosmic adventures with Avengers and with Guardians of the Galaxy and with Thor, we thought it was the right time to finally introduce Captain Marvel to the world. She's one of the most popular characters in our comics. She's one of the most powerful characters in the comics and will be the most powerful character in the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
And while that might seem like a definitive reason to kind of close the case on this and just choose that Captain Marvel is the winner, we've seen the executives at Marvel kind of say things that aren't necessarily true. Kind of like how they said the new Avengers movie probably wouldn't be called something that we've heard before in the movies before, and we had Endgame. And just a bunch of little misdirections they have done over the years. So this doesn't necessarily mean that it's definitive, but it definitely should shed some light on the fact that Captain Marvel is an extremely strong fighter. Shifting gears to Thor, we've seen him over the years really fight against some crazy odds, and he's a very, very powerful fighter and possibly the strongest Avenger we have seen to date. Matter of fact, outside of just a couple of individual battles, we've never even really seen Thor struggle until his fight with Thanos at the very beginning of Avengers Infinity War. And mind you, he didn't even have his hammer. And while we consider the overall experience of the fighter, and we looked at Captain Marvel and how she has had a ton of fighting experience, decades worth, we can actually look at Thor and see that he's had this huge huge history of being a warrior of battle, which definitely outweighs any experience that Captain Marvel would have, even with a couple decades under her belt. And with that, we see Thanos as possibly one of the strongest villains we've ever seen in the entire MCU, and with Thor and his Stormbreaker, he actually did some serious damage on Thanos, which no one else was really able to do. Not even Tony Stark as Iron Man, who really looked like he should have beat Thanos pretty badly, and he only got a couple of drops of blood. So it speaks a lot for how powerful Thor is with his Stormbreaker. That at least should be put into consideration. While we've only seen a very short interaction between Captain Marvel and Thor from the little end screen of that second trailer that we finally got, we're still pretty limited on direct comparisons between Thor and Captain Marvel. However, they both share a similarity that we have seen from the past year in the Marvel Cinematic Universe in both Avengers Infinity War and Captain Marvel that we can compare against. At the very beginning of Avengers Infinity War, Thor is actually put in restraints and is unable to free himself for a pretty long duration. Similarly, Captain Marvel is put in her own restraints in the beginning of Captain Marvel and is able to break out of them relatively quickly. And while of course we can't weigh out how strong the technology between the restraints differs between each movie and each species who had the restraints in the first place, there is something to be said with the fact that Captain Marvel breaks out almost immediately, and she only had a very minimum amount of her power at that point in the film. She still hadn't unleashed her full spectrum of abilities. With all of this considered, we also can kind of take account into some of the source material we see from the comics to weigh out the possibilities as to what these characters could be like and how strong they can be when translated into film and kind of compared against each other. And while the comics as a source material serve as nothing more than source material, as the producers and directors of the films can choose to change things and make characters stronger or weaker to balance out whatever narrative they're trying to tell, we can still at least consider some of the things from the comic books and what Marvel officially says on some of these things as to maybe where these characters will go or how these characters will be translated and compared against on the big screen. Marvel.com actually does a really great breakdown on these characters as far as the comics are concerned, and even gives them a score based on 6 different categories that would be crucial for a superhero. For instance, Thor gets a 6 out of 7 on durability, a 6 out of 7 on energy, a 4 out of 7 on fighting skills, a 2 out of 7 in intelligence, and a 7 out of 7 on speed, and a 7 out of 7 on strength. These, for the most part, actually make quite a bit of sense when you think about it in the context to the MCU. Sure, this is based off of the comic book version of Thor, but at the same time, I can kind of see how they see Thor's intelligence as one of his weaker points as opposed to his strength and his speed and everything else that he's known for as being a warrior. Switching gears, if we take a look at Carol Danvers on the official Marvel page, once again based off of the comics, we see that she has a 6 out of 7 in durability, a 6 out of 7 in energy, a 4 out of 7 in fighting skills, a 3 out of 7 in intelligence, a 5 out of 7 in speed, and a 5 out of 7 in strength, putting her a couple of points lower than Thor, and actually even a couple of points lower than Iron Man. So to an extent, we can kind of see a little bit of a conflict, especially when compared what Kevin Feige initially said about Captain Marvel being the strongest Avenger, especially when Marvel.com kind of blatantly disagrees with that. So we don't really have the full picture just yet, and we won't really be able to see who would win in a fight unless either A, Marvel decides to pit these two characters against each other in a Civil War II, which sign me up, I would go see that in a heartbeat, or B, in Avengers Endgame, we might get to see Captain Marvel and Thor fight against a similar enemy, and we can kind of take how and who fights the best against that similar enemy to kind of better rate who is the stronger fighter. In a perfect world though, it would be really cool to see Thor, Iron Man, and Captain Marvel all flying to fight some enemy with their glowing eyes, because they're the three characters that fly and have glowing eyes. Just on the bucket list of things I'd really like to see in Avengers Endgame, it'd be pretty awesome. But if we had to pick one winner, we are going to just slightly choose Thor over Captain Marvel, just because of his past experience fighting what we saw in Avengers Infinity War, and the fact that we really don't know how much Captain Marvel's powers are truly yet, and we're kind of just basing it off of speculation from the comic books. But of course, this could be subject to change after we see the next movie. And then, of course, on top of all of that, we can't forget the speculation that Thor and Captain Marvel could one day end up in a relationship, just based off of the little interaction we saw in the trailer. Of course, it's a long shot, just kind of taking one literal sentence from one character about another character and completely taking it out of context and speculating off of it. But who knows? Maybe that could be a path that goes down the rabbit hole and has some sort of interesting romantic storyline. We've seen weirder storylines with the Black Widow and the Hulk, so maybe Captain Marvel and Thor would become a couple. That would be kind of interesting. That would definitely be a power couple for sure though. But let us know in the comment section down below, are you team Captain Marvel or are you team Thor? Let us know what you're thinking in the comment section down below. We'd really like to kind of do some sort of tally on what people think the most, so by leaving a comment down below we can kind of put into consideration your opinion, and we'd really appreciate that feedback. If you like this video, hit the like button, and if you want more content just like this, be sure to subscribe and turn notifications on, and we'll see you all next time with a brand new video.
Hey guys, we hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you guys did, make sure you guys hit the like button down below and subscribe for more Film Artsy. If you guys want to showcase your talent to the world, Film Artsy is the best place for you guys to do it. Please submit your videos to filmartsyofficial@gmail.com, or you guys can click the link in the description. We really want to see what kind of talent you guys can provide. So let us know, send us an email, and we'll check out your videos, and we'll see you all in the next video.
Talking?
I'm about to.
Hi, everybody.
Hey, everybody. How you doing?
Hi.
See you guys.
Know anybody?